All right. So our next speaker is already has joined us. Hello, sir. Joy Guru.
Namaskar. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. All right, sir. So a quick introduction. He's a professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University, and he has done some monumental work and has worked extensively for the underprivileged children and have provided them with educational opportunities. So the topic he'll be covering is survival, science, and spiritualism. Sir, I welcome you to the digital stage. And before we begin, I just quickly want to tell you that we have exactly 20 minutes for the speech and the next 10 minutes for the Q&A. So I request you to kindly adhere to the timelines, as we know people from different parts of the countries have connected with us. So we have like a limitation. So I request you, otherwise I'll have to interrupt in between the speech, and that will be really problematic. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, you can take over the stage from here on.
Right. So, namaste to all of you. I will start with a recital from the Taittiriya Upanishad, a part of the Yajurveda. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May we all be protected, may we all be nourished, may we work together with great energy, may our intellect be sharpened, let there be no animosity amongst us. Om, peace in me, peace in nature, peace in the divine forces. Pranam to my spiritual guru and monks of the Ramakrishna Math Mission. Tomorrow is Guru Purnima. All the modern scholars and our ancient rishis and munis, and above all to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Sharada Ma, Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Anukul Thakur Chandra. I would like to tell that most of the lectures are based on these references. The first one is on the Science and Philosophy of Religion by Swami Vivekananda, the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, volumes 1 to 9, complete works of Sri Aurobindo, Sri Thakur Anukul Chandra's The Message, the book written by Professor M. Ramamurthy, who is a mathematician in Canada. His book is Indian Philosophy, an Introduction. There are wonderful websites. The first one is on the Ashtanga Yoga, so Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The second one is a discussion article by Science and Spirituality by Fritjof Capra. The third one is a website on Vedanta. The fourth one is on Samkhya philosophy of the St. Louis Yoga Ashram. The fifth one is on the Bhagavad Gita, which is available online. And then I would like to acknowledge that I have taken a lot of images and material from the Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica for the definitions. So with this, I would like to give the outline of my talk. So it will be roughly 3 to 4 minutes in each section. So introduction, followed by what is called survival, the being and becoming, which my previous speaker, Mr. Mahapatra, has wonderfully summarized. Then I'll be talking the same survival in the context of science and spirituality. I'll introduce these two concepts and will say, can a unity be found among these two paths? Then I'll talk about what is called the practical Vedanta approach. And then finally, survival during COVID pandemic, some practical aspects where people can follow and practice in that. So the introduction, where Mr. Mahapatra ended, I will start with that. That's the survival of the fittest. So this was a phrase that originated from evolutionary theory, and it was proposed by Charles Darwin, where he actually wrote that the survival of the form that will leave the most copies of itself in successive generations. Now, the exact term was actually proposed by Herbert Spencer, who was actually following and trying to relate economic theories with Darwin's biological ones. And he proposed in 60s that the survival of the fittest, which I have sought to express in mechanical terms, is that which Mr. Darwin has called natural selection. So this was the term which was used by Darwin. And then Darwin followed the suggestions of his friend Alfred Russel Wallace and then used this phrase, survival of the fittest, as an alternative to the natural selection. And as this picture summarizes the philosophy or thing what Charles Darwin had proposed, that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. And that's what we will see, mostly the change and the growth. Okay. So science. What is science? The knowledge or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through scientific method. And so you will find that there is a scientific method where people observe things, then put questions, do some research, formulate a hypothesis, do some experiments, generate some data, and then conclude. And this normally can be a prediction or a predictable outcome or a verification of a hypothesis. Spirituality, on the other hand, has to do with spirit. It's the essence of being human. So it's look up finding out meaningful of life. And the Latin word spiritus means breath. And you will see that in almost all the philosophies of the West and the East, it is what we represent, the breath of life. So spirituality is usually understood as a way of being that flows from a certain profound experience of reality. Okay? And the central awareness in these spiritual moments is a profound sense of oneness with all. That is the unity that I will be talking in the way the science follows and the way the spiritualists follow. So survival, the being and becoming. So as you know, Hinduism is a very different religion, and it is often called Sanatana Dharma because it is not a true religion in the sense of the term. And the word dharma in Sanskrit can be often translated as duty, religion, or religious duty, but it actually has a deeper meaning. And it is derived from the Sanskrit root word dhatu, which is dri dhatu. So a person's dharma consists of duties that sustain him according to his innate characteristics, which are both spiritual and material. And people often ask what is the difference between a religious person and a spiritual person or an enlightened person. I was sent a lovely thing by one of my gurus of the Ramakrishna Mission. He said, he who loves his enemy is a religious person. He who serves his enemy is a spiritual person. He who does not have an enemy is an enlightened person because he doesn't see anybody else as an enemy. It is all one. So if you consider your position at any specific time, you can mark it as a dot. This is the position that you have. Now you can go in different directions. So if I see that you can go in actually infinite amount of directions. So normally you should set a final destination or a target or an ideal. And Mr. Mahapato said that without an ideal, we have a chance of getting lost. So we should have an initial point and a target. But then once these 2 points are fixed, you can see that there are infinite ways of reaching your target. Now, often people are tempted by taking the shortest path, which is the straight line connecting these 2 points. But let me remind you that life is not a straight path, and often we are not aware of all the dimensions. And so often what happens is in the 2-dimensional plane, the straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. But when you have in higher dimensions, it is not the shortest. So let me talk about the scientific path. Goal of science was wonderfully captured by Henri Poincaré, who was a French mathematician and theoretical physicist. So he said that the search for truth should be the goal of our activities. It is the sole end worthy of them. And I underline this words, search for truth, because I'll come back to it later. So if I ask a question, what are we made up of? So you have seen human anatomy and physiology, and they'll tell that we are made up of tissues and cells. This is how our blood looks like, the red blood corpuscles. And then if you go and see that, okay, what are the cells made up of? So the cells have a structure and they are made up of different organelles called chromosome, nucleus, chromosome. What is the chromosome made up? It is made up of DNA. So this is already in the realm of molecular biology and biochemistry. Now you go and ask what are this DNA made up of? They are made up of chemicals or atoms and molecules. So this is, for example, an example of the helium atom. But then helium atom itself has a structure, which called the electrons and protons and neutrons. So this is what the physicists study, and they call it atomic and nuclear physics. Okay. Now you keep on breaking this, and then the physicists will tell you that actually all the types of particles that exist in the universe can be divided into two parts. One are called the fermions, and the other called the bosons. One form the matter, and the other form the forces. But if they tell you that you are that, would you think that you would believe? Is that true? So that is what science is telling you. Now let's hear what the spiritual path and the spiritualists tell you. So let me take from Bhagavad Puran, and it has a part which was written by the Vedantist Adi Shankara. So he says, the aim of life is inquiry into the truth, and not the desire for enjoyment in heaven by performing religious rites. Those who possess the knowledge of the truth call the knowledge of non-duality as truth. It is called Brahman. And then I again underline the word inquiry into the truth. So we have a huge collection of Hindu scriptures, and this is roughly the classification which has been made. But let me tell you, we'll be focusing mainly on the Sankhya Yoga philosophy and the Uttar Mimamsa or Vedanta philosophy, a few quotes from Bhagavad Gita and a few quotes from the Upanishads. Now, the Vedanta philosophy is what we call the Advaita philosophy, and there is also the Dvaita philosophy. So we will be focusing on Advaita, where Brahman is the sole reality. We'll be focusing on the Yoga and Sankhya, where Purusha and Prakriti are the dualistic picture. So in the Sankhya philosophy, you will be basically told that there are three parts: the body, the mind, and the consciousness. And then it can be broken up into smaller parts of matter. And in fact, this is the chart which tells you how they interact. And this was first proposed by Kapil Muni and developed by different saints. And then Rishi Patanjali formulated what are called the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Yoga Sutra aphorisms. So it has slight difference, or it is rearrangement of this body, mind, and consciousness complex. But otherwise, it is basically the same thing. And what they tell is that evolution is predicated upon the Purusha coming into contact with the Prakriti. Purusha, although ever wise, ever pure, and ever free, is solely a witness and is unable to act on its own. Prakriti, on the other hand, is not the self, and thus requires Purusha for it to become manifested. And this is this interplay of Prakriti and Purusha that we see. So there are different technical terms that are used, and the mind itself, mind complex itself, is broken up into several parts. So that's the Buddhi, Ahamkara, Manas, and this is Chitta. And what we is taught in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and this is the second sutra in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it tells Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Okay? So you have to stop the Chitta and the Vrittis. So liberation through realization of one's Swarup corresponds to the conclusion of the play in this analogy, where all these interactions happen. The Vedanta philosophy can be also referred to as the yoga of objectivity, because it tries to take away the difference between objective reality and subjective interpretation. So seeing what is without projecting one's own idea is what Vedanta deals with, Advaita Vedanta. And so Nirvikalpa state is the ultimate state when there is the subject and the object become one, and there is no distinction between the two. Now, this whole philosophy of Advaita Vedanta is wonderfully summarized because it takes into form all the different forms of knowledge and unites them. And it can be summarized by the Nirvana Shatakam written by Adi Shankaracharya. So Shatakam is the 6 verses, so Shatakam. And this anecdote goes that Shankaracharya was 8 years old, and when he met Acharya Govinda Father, and he was asked, "Who are you?" And in response, he gave this Nirvana Shatakam. I'll recite the first paragraph and the last. Mano bodh hankara chitani naham na cha shrota juhe na cha ghana nete na cha vyoma bhumir na tejo Navayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So what it does is whatever you've heard so far, it says that I am not mind, I am not intellect, I am not ego. So it starts negating all of that. That is the path which is called neti in Advaita Vedanta. And this way you would reach the ultimate state. So that's the nirvikalpa state. So the last verse says that Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhutvacha sarvatra sarvendriyanam nachasam natam naiva muktirnameya chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. So now, these are the two parts which we were talking. Now, can a unity be found? So, Swami Vivekananda says yes. Sri Anukul Chandra Thakur also says yes. And that is what we find, that religion deals with the truths of the metaphysical world just as chemistry and other natural sciences deal with the truths of the physical world. Similarly, Anukul Chandra Thakur says science and dharma are not opposed to each other. The stay of all existence is dharma. Similarly, there are several prominent theoretical physicists and Nobel laureates who have actually told similar things, that there is a relation between science and spirituality. Okay? So, in India, the attempt has been made from earliest times to reach a science of religion and philosophy, and we don't consider the two aspects as different but of one thing. And in fact, in the Mundaka Upanishad, the question a householder asks to a teacher is, "Sir, what is that through which, if it is known, everything else becomes known?" And then the whole of Upanishads tries to expound on this philosophy. So what we see are that science and spirituality are two sides of the same coin. Science or Vigyan talks and studies about external nature, whereas spirituality or yoga talks about the internal nature. And the goal of religion and the goal of science both are actually same, which is search for truth. And so even if we come from different subjects, for example, physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, as we make progress, we go towards what we call the absolute knowledge, and that is the truth. So this is what is called Chit in Sanskrit. This happens to be the point also of Sat or absolute existence, in which the previous speaker has already elaborated. And this happens to be the point also of absolute bliss or Ananda. And this three can be talked together and turned into one as Satchidananda. So the goal of science and religion is ultimately to reach that unity. And that is what we call in the Upanishads a Tattvam Asi. These are called the Mahavakyas, and in different forms they are expounding the same thing. Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, Tattvam Asi, Aham Brahmasar. So there are many parts to that unity. This is taken from the Pushpadanta Shiva Mahima Stotram. Ruchi idam vaichitra Dvichuputila nana pathajusham Ninameko gamya Stamasipaya samarnavaiva. So people follow different paths, straight or crooked, according to their temperament, depending on which they consider best or most appropriate, and reach you alone just as rivers enter into the ocean. So there are different ways of reaching the top or uniting with God, and that will depend on each one of us because each one is unique. So now I come to the practical Vedanta. As you have already seen, Patanjali Yoga Sutra deals with this. So yoga is the journey of the self through the self and to the self. And so basically you are trying to make yourself aware, so self-awareness or self-realization. So Swami Vivekananda classified the different methods into the four classes: Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raj Yoga. And it says that each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external, internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of this, and be peace. This is the whole of religion. So normally students are supposed to follow certain ways, and these are the qualities that are required. So it's called Vivek, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshu. But tomorrow there will be two of my friends who will be talking more about the education system and discipline. The practical Vedanta, so I'm taking a quote from Bhagavad Gita. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tattva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddho Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So be steadfast in the performance of your duty, O Arjuna, abandoning attachment to success and failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Similarly, Yata Prabhritir Bhutanam Yena Sarvamidam Tatam Sarva Karmana Tamabhyachya Siddhing Vindati Manava. So by performing one's natural occupation, one worships the Creator from all living entities, and that is how you can reach perfection. So now final section, survival during COVID pandemic. So you have already seen the different things. So this is an article which appeared in Wall Street Journal, Keeping Your Temper. So this is a wonderful thing by Mental Health Foundation of UK, which talks about, boiling point, how anger can be controlled, what is anger, what is rage, and threats of yoga and status. That is what anger is. It's a way of dealing. So it's also a way of survival. So that all points are not bad. And there are many things that you can see how to get your anger management. I will now come to what Bhagavad Gita tells you. Dhyato Vishwanam Punsa Sangha Teshu Pachyate Sangat Sangya Jati Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. So it tells that contemplation of sensual objects leads to attachment, attachment leads to desire, and desire leads to anger. The next one tells Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat shriti vittama, shriti bhangshat buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat tanashati. So anger leads to clouding of judgment. Clouding of judgment leads to bewilderment of memory. Bewilderment of memory leads to intellect destroyed, and when the intellect is destroyed, the person is ruined. So how do I manage? Raga dvesha vichuktastu vishayan indriyaisaran atma vaishver vidhe atma prasadam adhikachati. So you try to cut off using yoga, and you try to control your desires from here. So the chitta vritti nirodha, and then what happens is the attachment and the thing is gone, and so you don't have any anger anymore. So this is the prescription that is given by Bhagavad Gita. With this, I would like to thank you, all the organizers and the audience, for a patient hearing. I can take questions. One who asks questions is a fool for a minute. One who doesn't ask is a fool for life. But I thought that I'll stop before I will stop you, because I realized that without Guru Dakshina, it is not fair to give Gyan for free. And so you can send me all the money before you ask questions to this Paytm account. And if you try to understand what is the role of Guru Dakshina, you can refer to this article. With this, pranam to all of you, and I will take your questions. I can't hear you.
You're asking, so I can give out the question, right?
You have to first send me money into Paytm. No, I'm joking. Please go ahead.
Okay. So Disha, this question is from Disha Bhattacharya from India. So Disha, you can Paytm the money. So her question is how to deal with depression.
Yeah, so that is what I was actually talking about. We go into depression because we do not understand and handle our body-mind complex well. And that's what, Gita is telling, that how to focus, so how to understand your true reality. Okay. And if you try to focus on that, you will understand that you should not get attached. So you have to detach from the problems. So that is the problem, and that is what Gita deals with, attachment and detachment. So it tells you that when you have to do something, you attach fully to your karma or duty, but then you detach yourself from the results or the outcome. And this attachment and detachment has to be practiced. When we cannot do this detachment, is that when you start getting affected. So all these kleshas, which is including this disappointment, anger, and all that come. So you have to control, and that requires training, and that is what yoga deals with. So what you learn yoga normally is the hatha yoga, which is the physical part, but there is also the part which deals with emotions, and that is what the Patanjali Yoga Sutra deals with. So if somebody has more questions, they can write to me, and I can also send them materials and tell them how to get rid of these problems.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. We have like a lot of questions, but we have due time now, and it's so I'm going to stop here with the Q&A. I hope, Disha, that has answered your question. And on that note, sir, I would like to really thank you for joining us today and enlightening us on the topic of science, spiritualism, and survival. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Pranam to all.